Wow, it's a lot more people than when I walked in. Power After, thank you guys for inviting us. I remember the last summit when we came last year, we were looking and really excited to be here because ultimately with so many people with the thoughts, so many heads of states of Africa that actually came to contribute, their presence, ministers, delegates here in the U.S. also very involved. And me being born in America and raised in Africa gave me a huge outlook on what was missing back home in Africa. And my mom and dad ultimately came to the U.S. and saw a huge opportunity for us. So they made sure we were all born in the States so we wouldn't have immigration problems getting back and forth and dealing with the issues that they dealt with as immigrants. But ultimately, the education that I acquired here and the lifestyle that I was able to experience gave me a bigger motive and motivated me to want my family to experience the same thing. Because when I came back to Africa as an infant and to be raised there until I was 7 or 8 before I came here to go to grammar school, then high school, almost college, I was in a position where everything that I got so used to was taken away from me when I went home. I was a little kid playing soccer, barefooted in the sand, taking baths in this case, from well water. We even cooked out of that well water and drank out of that well water. But it was such a routine thing that my immune system just grew accustomed, to fighting, all the parasites in the water and things of that nature. So when I came back to the States, the normal things that normal kids would get sick from, I would pretty much overcome it because I kind of went through a little rougher terrain. But the more I spent time here and I would go back into that same environment, I started to find myself getting weaker when I went home. So it was a challenge in all aspects because I just looked at it as life in general. When you're in a position where you actually feel that you're having less, in so many ways you actually have more. And that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned because when I look at where Africa stands today and the opportunities and what it's actually, with the capacity of what it has, some may look at it as a weaker situation. But from what I've discovered, it's actually a stronger situation. Because Africa is in a position where, with the right resources and partnerships and knowledge and unity, it can really become advantageous to the rest of the world. I mean, even more than what it is today. And when I kind of evaluate the energy issues or energy poverty that happens in Africa now, I start to realize that the biggest problem in Africa is not really more so energy, it's grid. Grid is the biggest problem in Africa because without the grid, you can't build airports, schools, hospitals, shopping malls, none of that. So you can't expect a country to grow without the basic business necessities that helps economies grow in the first place. And our biggest resource is human resource. So myself, my partners, and the whole Akon Lighting Africa team decided to take advantage of that human resource. And this is why we were able to grow so fast in such a little time, because we assessed the countries that we visited, figured out what the biggest needs were, and we utilized the local community to help us ultimately plan out the infrastructure in which how we would attack the problem. So in every project that we actually go to, we always meet with the heads of states. We meet the local ministers. I mean, from the energy minister to the youth minister, to the education minister, to the finance minister. And we involve everybody. Because energy is not just an energy minister's problem. Because the community has to be the one to actually, they're the one that's affected by the energy that's coming. So we always make sure that everyone's involved. And when you create a community that's united on one goal, it's impossible for you not to achieve it. Because ultimately, I've saw also, and I'm just saying this because I know it's gonna be a lot of penetration within the continent, it just helps you understand it better. There was a lot of corporations in the past used to just come in and just have a meeting with one particular minister that benefits whatever agenda they may have. But at the same time, that agenda may also be tapping into another resource in that area that also helps to uplift that situation as well. So when you bring them all together, they all have an issue that one particular situation may affect. So it just kind of helps you kind of evaluate the overall need in the community, which also helps your agenda. And with us, what we decided to do was, ultimately we had to figure out the financing scheme first, because financing in Africa was one of the biggest issues. Mainly because of the instability in certain countries and how it affects the stable countries next door, perhaps, or just in a position where there was a lot of, you could say, unexperienced politician that might have just got into office and learning as they go. We had to figure out how to overcome all these problems as we're trying to build a better tomorrow for the children. Because one thing I did realize, and we took very key note of, was that the population in Africa was majority minors. You had over 65% of the African youth that populated Africa. And for the rest of the 35%, half of them were trying to find their ways to get into America, or a majority was unemployed. So it was just a huge unbalance there. So if we had a population of young youth that's very smart, mind you, that take education extremely serious, because some of these kids walk 5 to 10 miles to get to school in the morning and back, and then repeat that tomorrow for over 250 days of the year. Clearly, if they were in a position to learn something that would empower them, they would do it without a heartbeat and get paid to do it. Because ultimately, opportunity was missing. So we pulled all those in. And as we got into each country with these credit lines, kind of rewinding a little bit, we were able to acquire $1 billion credit line that allowed us to be able to work with the local governments and adjust whatever their energy budget was for that particular year, combine it into a 3 or 4 year term, well, 3 to 5 years, and kind of package a full-out project that would impact millions of people in their community or country, and then have them pay it out within 3 to 5 years, ultimately. So let's say if you had a country that was only able to spend $50 million a year on rural electrification, but the project that we're trying to bring in to make a huge impact would cost $250 million. Well, we would pre-finance the $250 million and then allow the government to pay $50 million a year for the next 5 years to cover the issue. Because ultimately, we also realized that not only was energy and grid a big issue, but time was very important. Because the average power plant or hydro project, these kind of projects takes 5 to 10 years to develop. You guys know this. It takes a long time. Away from the research, past execution, into it adapting into everything else that needs to be done to it. These are 5, 10-year projects without even hesitating. Before you hiccup, you realize 10 years has passed, and something may even go wrong, and the project may stall because power may come in and disagree with the contracts submitted before. Things just like these things happen. So we had to find ways to where, regardless of what happened with the major projects, we could at least be bringing the impact in and allowing us to buy time for the governments and major corporations from the outside to come in and figure out the proper energy plan to grow in each country that can eventually one day connect for all of Africa to be electrified. So we took on that role and decided to just focus on the rural areas only. Now, the rural areas is the heartbeat of Africa. That's the majority of the population is out in the rural areas. So clearly Africa will never run out of sun. So this is why solar was our main choice. And ultimately what we're doing today is coming up with the most affordable mini-grid system that can electrify every country. And it's almost like Lego blocks that you can connect each grid onto it to increase the wattage, increase the power for as long as you need to electrify the rest of the country. And we partnered up with a few universities, you know, and a couple technicians, a couple brainiacs, quality control from countries in Europe, here in the United States, Germany, and in China. And it's a full collective effort to come up with the most affordable mini grid that will fix the solution up until the point where either the grid catches up or renewable advances to the point where these major projects won't be needed. And then we won't be traveling all over the world having climate control seminars. You know? So we want to be able to move with the time, move and adapt to the newest, latest technologies, and involve the youth to the point where it's almost automatic that they now go to school to figure out how to stay sustainable. Because the mind state of Africans have to change. And it's not about getting out of Africa to make it. It's about staying in Africa to build it. Because ultimately, that mind state is what's going to allow the kids of the diaspora to take that knowledge, bring it back in, and also create jobs outward that also helps where they come from. In my case, it's a prime example, because Akon Lighting Africa, ironically, is an American company. So jobs may be getting taken away in America, but they're being built in Africa. And it's also helping Africans, educating them and empowering them. Because in return, it's going to help a citizen that comes from the United States who will most likely employ more, teach more, and empower more. So we try to move in the most efficient way possible and try to be very effective and try to involve as many partners as possible, because clearly everyone knows I'm come from an entertainment family. I knew nothing about energy until 2010 when I thought about doing this. You know, so partners educated me, you know, partners gave me, you know, allowed me to be able to extend my arms to pull out more. And it was the unity of just collectively coming together to work with other people, allowing me not only to involve, but also them allowing me to involve in what they're doing and putting it all together to roll out. And when I was at the UN and met with the Power Africa team, we were delighted. Like, more than delighted. We ran out of the building, well, the UN, like, oh, we're about to partner with Power Africa. This was huge for us, you know? Think about it, we're competing with, like, GE Africans and these guys. These are giants, you know? So this was a huge step for us, because it showed that now the world is paying attention, and we're all now coming together to be involved with the growth in Africa. And it was a dream come true for me. So ultimately the key now is to make sure that all partners are welcomed in a way to where Akon Lighting Africa can facilitate information, manpower, you know, resources. And we're also building more, Solektras around the world, more solar universities that will be able to educate the locals to be able to maintain, install all these equipments. You know, so the key at the end of the day clearly is unity. It's us all coming together, because this is not a solution that one solution is going to be able to fix. That should have been my ringtone. Download for you.
Yeah.
You know, Africa's everybody's problem. It's not just Africa's. So I think this is the best start. It's clearly showing that everyone clearly is speaking the same language. You know, after coming from France to COP21 and seeing all the leaders coming together there and being in the mix of all of that, seeing and hearing and understanding the effects of what we're doing as people is going to clearly make a huge impact for everything and everyone around us. So we can't just look at it and sit around and figure out or try to alienate ourselves from a problem and just saying, okay, this is something that they have to deal with, because that something will eventually affect us or you. So it's very clear what the issues are. We can have only but so many seminars before we start executing. And at the end of the day, the name of the game is putting points on the board. The only person that's allowed to talk in this team is the coach. And he's always sitting on the sideline. But we're the players. So we really have to pull more points on the scoreboard. And the only way that happens, as you know, team plays as a team. And we're clearly team players, and arms are wide open for any suggestions, any involvements, any partnerships. And let's just do it together. Power Africa, thank you guys again for having us here. It's an honor. And Akon, Lighting Africa is open to everyone.